Hey, this is Jill, and I'm part of the TenMarks Customer Success team. And the purpose of this short video is to really help you understand how you can use TenMarks for summer school. We have a really specific sequence that we find works best during the abbreviated summer season. In fact, this presentation is going to actually include a combination of our TenMarks 101 and TenMarks 201 getting started and getting personal webinars. We jokingly refer to this inside of TenMarks as TenMarks 151. So like Bacardi 151, it packs a big punch and it happens really quickly. This is my contact info. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help get you unstuck for any of the topics that come up. But what we're going to do is just quickly review some of the design points of TenMarks, and then you're going to be using both curriculum and assignments this summer as well as TenMarks assessments. And really it's the combination of the two that makes summer school work best. So, you know, what we're really going to want to reinforce is sort of the TenMarks assignment and assessment features specifically that work best in summer. And we'll go through a short demonstration of the two working together, and then hopefully you'll be able to build a personalized plan to use TenMarks in your classroom as soon as next week or tomorrow to begin driving progress for your students. So you want to keep in mind that there are 4 key growth tools in TenMarks. We talk at greater detail about these in our TenMarks 101 session, but we really believe that helping students get unstuck if they can't work their problems is a really important thing. We give them timely resources such as hints and videos. Amplifiers are the TenMarks name for a tutorial, and amplifiers happen specifically when students have worked on a 10-question problem set, and then when the system scores their work, they're not yet at mastery. So we'll give them a short tutorial that really reinforces and reviews the key topics. And speaking of review, it's one of my favorite features of TenMarks, the fact that you can submit your work and review what's correct and what's not yet correct, and still have access to the hints and videos. So TenMarks gives you kind of a free score, and then if you're not yet at the mastery level or 100% where you'd like to be, you can actually go back and review the problems and the hints and videos before submitting it to your teacher. So keep in mind these 4 things are going to be really important that you share with your students that they can use to do really well during their TenMarks summer program. For each standard, we have looked very closely at all the different ways for students to show mastery. And so when you click on a specific TenMarks assignment or assessment, you're always going to get a mix of conceptual, procedural, and application style problems that go at different levels of depth of knowledge. And students will always receive these in 10 or 20 question assignments. It's really important that you understand we're pulling from about 80 or 90 questions, even though we're only delivering 10 to the student. So each student gets a different mix of 10. And so there really are a variety of ways that they can show mastery. But the typical TenMarks assignment will have 1 question at a time. It will include hints and videos, as well as at the end, that review and auto-scoring feature. Let me just show you what a typical TenMarks assignment will look like. So when I'm a teacher and I go into TenMarks, especially at summertime, one of the very first things I'll want to do is I'll either see or create my TenMarks summer school class. Let's just say it's going to be my grade 5 class. And if I am creating that 5th grade, it allows me to just cut and paste my roster of students in here. So if I had an Excel spreadsheet with all my students, I would just cut and paste it here. In this case, I'm just going to create 1 demo student, and now I have a class with 1 student in it. And this is my newly created rising 5th grade class. So to make an assignment for my 5th grade class, I click on the top black bar, and I can either send it to this whole class or just to individual students. But what you'll notice is that TenMarks has actually pre-populated your assignments because we selected grade 5 when we created the class, so it actually has all of the standards for grade 5 already in here. And if I wanted to do just a simple kind of practice assignment, maybe 5 NF1, completing equivalent fractions, I would choose first, number 1 is who, number 2 is what, and number 3 is when. And that's how easy it is to make a TenMarks assignment. When you choose the due date, keep in mind that the students will have until that date to turn in their work to you. If they don't finish it on time, you would have to reopen the assignment for them to be able to complete it and get credit. I do always recommend that you preview the assignment because that way, oops, let me make sure I have a student to assign it to. That way you can see the kinds of problems that your students are going to get. And we always say the kinds of because this is a random sampling of the 10 questions that students will receive, and keep in mind that they'll each receive slightly a different mix of this. But if I click Assign Now, I now have my TenMarks assignment. So if I click on Manage Class, this is where I can actually download my class roster. So if I click Download, any students that I've cut and pasted into my class will each receive a nice little handout to allow them to get online. So this is my Rising 5th grade roster, and you'll see not only do I have a list of all the students, but I also have a little sheet that I can cut out and give them their login information. So if I were to actually log in as that student, and what I like to do, I actually like to edit my usernames and passwords and make them the same for the students. So I've just done that by clicking on this little gray avatar here. If I log out of my teacher account, you'll see how easy it is to log in. And we do recommend the first time that you create an assignment for your students and expect them to complete it, that you actually use this demo student like I've just created. It's a great way for you to actually then log in as the student. You can project this in front of your whole class and really help them understand that when they're doing assignments on TenMarks, that they're expected to actually watch the videos and get hints. So certainly they don't have to if they already know how to do the problem, then I wouldn't have to do this. But if your students are not really confident and not getting really high scores, then they need to know that your expectation is that they'll either watch a video to get support, and this just works a lot like you'd expect if you're familiar with YouTube. Your quick students can use it to either move ahead to keep concepts, or your students that need more support can replay it or go back over it again. Your hints, there's always going to be 3 hints for the students. So the students go through the assignment just one at a time. As you can see, I'm just clicking. They can go forward and back. And I do think it's important that you model for them exactly what happens when they get to that 10th question, because this is where if they are about ready to turn in their work, the system will have that review function. So you see how it gives them this 0.0% score because I skipped them all, but this allows me to go back, and if I want to correct my answers, I can still look at those hints and videos. And now is a really good time for me to look at those things because the system has just told me that I'm not all the way correct yet. So that's just a quick overview of how easy it is to make an assignment and to go through that as a student would. What I'm going to do now is kind of come back to the key ideas behind this, and I would encourage you, if you're watching this on review, to go ahead and pause the video and do exactly what I've just done, because this would allow you to really get the hang of what happens when you create a TenMarks assignment. But for those that are moving quickly through this, many of you might have already had experience with the free version of TenMarks, and you want to know how to use assessments to build personal playlists. That's what's coming next. Because that is what we find is one of the most common ways to use TenMarks at summer school. You want to give students maybe a full class period to understand kind of the basics of an assignment and the fact that there are hints and videos and growth mindset tools available to them. But what is most common is that you'll go into the system and actually use it to create a short test. Actually, you can create either a grade level or a standard level assessment, and what the students will receive is an assessment that gives them problems just like you've seen in the assignment, but there will be no hints and videos and no review process for them to see whether they're correct yet or not. This is just going to be looking at what have the students retained, and this is probably something that you'll have the students complete within the first couple of days of summer school, so that you can understand, what are your students coming in with as their foundational strengths and weaknesses. So you'll select assessment from your top bar, and you'll say who I'm sending it to, give it a name, and most importantly, the start time and the due date. And then you'll want to choose, am I going to test them on the entire grade level, usually the grade level that you just completed, or do I have a specific scope and sequence of what we're going to be covering this summer, and that would be the standard level, which is usually going to be a slightly shorter test and a little bit more focused. But whichever one you choose, either the grade level or the standard level, you're basically trying to go through that creation mode where you click, who, what, when, choosing the grade or the standard level. And then what you're going to be doing is basically giving them the pre-test that first week, and then we'll review in a moment exactly what this looks like on the system, but you're going to then have recommendations that come to you from the system on what topics would be most helpful for that individual student to review. At the last week of summer, you'll actually be able to give them another assessment on the same topic, either the grade level or the standard level assessment, and the system will create automatically a different set of post-test questions on the same topic that we started with. So the playlist will be what we talk about next. That's going to be in the system coming directly from the results of the assessment. So for each student, I might have 10 students and they may have all missed one problem, but they may have all missed a slightly different problem on a different topic. And so the system will create a set of recommendations. I can accept them for the whole class or each individual student, but they'll be customized based on two ideas. What has the student done well on or not done well on, and what are the common core progressions for the topics that they need more support. On the student side, this will deliver them, if I accept the recommendations, it will deliver to the student a personal set of assignments that are customized based on how they did on the assessment and what the common core progressions are. And then you're really going to be using your class time to allow them to work through this series of personal assignments. And so the kind of process that you'll go through, and we'll review exactly how to do this in just a moment, but you'll give them an assessment, you'll accept the system recommendations, adding them to the student's personal assignment playlist, and then you'll simply give them access in class to go through the assignments with full access to the hints and videos, and if they need it, the amplifier or review tutorial, and then at the last week we'll assess them again. Let's just see how that works. So now when I log in as a teacher, I'm going to be going and creating an assessment. And let me choose my, I think we did our grade 5, Rising grade 5 class. So when I click into my assessments on the top black bar, what you'll notice is that there's this big Create New Assessment button. So I'll click Create a New Assessment, and in this case, I'm going to assign it to all my students. I'm going to give it a summer pretest and a due date. The start time is important because for a test like this, and not many of your students hopefully would be accessing it home before the right time, but I may not want them to start the assessment until 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And then this is where, if I choose grade level, the questions that are going to be answered is, or the questions that are going to be asked is going to cover all of the topics in all of grade 5. So this is going to be, if I scroll quickly through here, there's 35 questions, and it should be an assessment that you would allow your students to finish completely. So many teachers would give it during a 90-minute session or give them 2 class periods depending on what your structure is. But if I wanted to give them that full grade level assessment, which is very, very common, I could just click Assign or the Preview button. Just keep in mind that if I did choose the standard level, and you may have students that you already know you need to work just on fractions. So I may have a list of specific standards, and we're just going to really nail all of this fractions topics. And what you'll see is for every standard that I choose, the way the TenMarks assessments work is we'll add 6 questions per standard. So what you'll see now is that the assessment is only covering fractions, and because I chose 7 different topics, it's given me 42 questions. So you'll be able to choose whichever you prefer. I'm going to actually, for time considerations, I'm going to simply choose one standard to demonstrate this. So I'm just going to choose one standard here and click Assign. And what I'm going to do now is grab my student login information again. So I've just gone back to my managed class, and I'm going to log in as that student. And what you'll see now is that my student has just this assessment, and there's one question at a time, but there are no hints and videos over on the side. And so we're really looking for the students to just show us what they know. And then when this is submitted, I not only get the score, and of course it does tell me, you know, what I did on each individual question and what the explanation for the correct answers are, but most importantly, when I log back into my teacher account, it's going to show me that under my assessments, I now have, again, this is my grade 5 class, so I now have new results for my summer pretest. And when I'm looking here at the results, not only do I see the individually scored work where we got a 0% on 5 NF1, but I can now click on the View Recommendations button, and this would be where I could select the recommendations for my entire class at once, and I can click Add Recommendations to the playlist. And now the students who had taken that assessment will have a personalized playlist of work to do. I just did this for Jill's playlist, so given that she was at the review level, she's now received 4th grade assignments at 4NF1, 4NF3A, 4NF3B, and these are going to be assigned to her inside her TenMarks account. She'll see these on the 2nd row, indicating that this was coming from an assessment or a personalized playlist, but it will give her a nice little list of things to do for the summer. The more standards that you test, and if you do the full grade level, you'll actually see more assignments there. But that kind of summarizes for you how to get things set up for success with the summer. I'm just going to kind of review what we've talked about so far. So what you'll want to do is create an assessment for that first week of school. We would recommend that you actually view this both from your perspective on setting it up and then also using your demo student, and practice accepting the playlist recommendations so that you become familiar with what it looks like. But then the next piece is really giving students a chance to do the work, and what you'll be able to see inside your teacher account is what results they're having on their different personal assignments that you've set up for them. So you've seen a quick little overview here of how to get things set up for success with TenMarks. The other piece that you have access to is what we call TenMarks Math Teach. And if you are logging into your account, you'll notice that each time you have to go to either TenMarks Math or TenMarks Math Teach. But after you've done the assessment and you've set up those personal playlists, you might find that there are certain standards that your students really need help with. And the Teach side of your account will give you grab-and-go resources that really help to strengthen the concept and understanding of what you're going to be working on in summer school. So if there's topics that you really want more help with, that's what you can find here. I'm going to share out a document that you can use to really get set up and guide your week-by-week activities. That's going to look something like this. So it just gives you kind of a week-by-week overview, and it will kind of give you clickable links to show you what do I do before summer school? What do I do that very first week where I'm creating an assignment and then accepting the recommendations? And then during your second or third or fourth weeks, whatever amount of time you have, you're really going to be alternating between giving students time to work on their personal assignments or their jam session, which is kind of our procedural practice place, or doing some of the work inside TenMarks Math Teach. And then the very final week of your TenMarks summer school, you'll actually go in and create another assessment that is the exact same topics that you did your first week assessment, and that will give the students a final kind of post-test with different questions on the same topic. And you'll be surprised that with access to all of this reinforcement and the hints and videos and so on, we see tremendous growth that happens, in many cases 10, 20, 30% growth from the pre-test to the post-test. Keep in mind that you are having your students work on pretty challenging content that supports some new standards. So don't overwhelm the students by creating really too many assignments. We would aim for somewhere around 3, 4, 5 per week. And then if you have any questions, just look for that on help.tenmarks.com or email us, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for joining us.